Hi guys, Ryu here, and in this video we're gonna be talking about probably one of the most difficult things that we all struggle with, and it's how to come up with initial design, the initial blockout. Now there are many ways of approaching the subject, and you can approach it analytically, mathematically, or artistically. And my way is artistic. I try to envision stuff in my head, and I sculpt in my head, or draw in my head, sketch in my head, whatever you want to call it. But I'll show you some tips and tricks and interesting ways of actually developing that skill, okay? So when you look at, this progression of this little bot that I've made, you can see that, it starts with very simple blockout, right? And it progresses to more complicated phases. But when you look at it, from a perspective of a silhouette, when I'm going to open it in Photoshop, you can see that there is not much difference between the initial one and the final result. When you think in a way of not the details but outlines, so I'm going to just simply paint it over very quickly, right? Then you will realize that the initial shape of this bot is quite similar to to the blockout, right? A few details here and there. I mean, this is not really a detail. I can remove this, just gonna be easier to envision this, right? This is really similar, guys, okay? So when you're progressing with your model, there's a very good chance that the basic blockout will not change much in terms of the shape and balance, okay? So the most important thing in any blockout, in any model, in my opinion, is to come up with a very solid, balanced blockout, okay? So you should be trying to envision something extremely basic, okay? Not something complicated, but extremely basic. And I'll show you later an example how to do it in practice, okay? When I think about modeling, I'm trying to first envision the shape. Then I'm trying to manipulate the shape and model in my head, if I can. So I'm trying to play off of some elements that I see in my mind, right? So for example, here, I was thinking like I need some ice, I need some kind of like an exhaust and probably longer feet, because I need to off balance that element, right? More detailed legs, some mechanism on feet, etc. So I knew what I need more or less, but I didn't actually see the final result. It's probably almost impossible to do that, right? You would need to have some kind of crazy mind to be able to envision this. The thing is that when you progress, right, you start playing off of shapes, and that's how it progresses, right? So when I created eyes, here, and I cut them, then I thought, this is the kind of a mood I want to go with, because you can see that this one has a blank expression, but this one actually starts looking as if it had some expression on its face. So I was trying to go with the theme, but then I went a little bit more of an evil mode, kind of like a, cyberpunk mode, and change my concept. But the basic shape, right, is the same. The basic balance is identical. Nothing changes. You simply play off of shapes of what you see on the screen. So when I had this shell here on the top, I thought I want to cut it, and then when I cut it, I thought, well, I need something on top here to kind of balance this cut, and maybe some kind of a monocular here on the front, etc., right? There may be some covers on knees and shins, and then when I did that, I wanted some plating on my on the toes. So there you go. This is how I work, okay, progressively. But this is the most important part. The blockout is the most important. If you don't have a well-balanced blockout, it will not work, okay? So before you start adding details, okay, before you start adding any details, make sure that this thing is balanced, all right? And by balanced, I mean it should look decent, okay, from literally almost any angle, right? Should look balanced and natural from any angle. It's really important. And I'll load later the ship I made for the hard ops course, and I'll show you what I mean, because it's a final object. It's more complicated, and it's actually quite interesting. Now I wanted to point out a very good video by Scott Robertson. If you don't know him, then you're doing it wrong, because this guy is one of the literally founding fathers of sci-fi. So watch him. He's brilliant, and he has a fantastic video on how he actually does the how he actually come up with ideas. So when you look at this here, right, he's using random Photoshop brushes, okay, to just stamp around canvas and find some shape. And when he actually, by accident, you know, finds something interesting on a canvas like this, then he brings it further and he starts refining it, okay, to more interesting shapes. And eventually, you know, he gets this, right? Now, he's an advanced artist, that's true, but you can clearly see a dog shape or some kind of a mech shape in this one. And all you need to do is refine it. And this is exactly how I work, it's just I do it in my head, okay? When we're gonna go through this file here, you'll see that I envision my shape, okay, so the basic blockout, right? Then I start manipulating with it in my mind and modeling, very basic modeling, moving things about, okay? I do it in my head, but you can do it in Blender, it's okay. Now here it should be fast, not far. That's my typing that went too far. So fast reference scan, okay, I'll show you what I mean in a minute. And then react and adapt. This is what I was talking about. When you see some kind of a shape, or like these eyes, whatever, you react to that, okay? So you treat each of these as a separate model, kind of, okay? And you react to the shape and you start cutting it or designing something, and then you react to what you see, right? When I saw this mouth cut out in here, I thought to myself, I probably want to have some grill, you know? And I try how it looked and looked great, and I framed it, I'm done. So this is how I work, okay? Then you simply go with the shape, not against it. That's really important. So when you find some interesting shape, don't fight it. Just go with it, okay? Let the shape lead you, all right? So if you find some really nice balance, try to build on top of it and then see where it's gonna lead you. That's how you come up with original designs. Because guys, when you copy people from ArtStation, that's not, you know, that's not art, that's just modeling, okay? But if you wanna be an artist and come up with your own original concepts, and you want to stand out with your own style, then you need to put some effort into developing that mental capacity of coming up with shapes and interesting blockouts. It takes a lot of practice, I know, but you know, that's what it is. So again, envision the shape, then manipulate it in your mind, do fast reference scans, and I'll talk to you about it in a second. React and adapt to what you see on a canvas in Blender and start building on these shapes and go with shapes, not against it, okay? These are my advices for coming up with a really interesting blockouts. And let me show you how serious I am with references, alright? This is a Star Citizen reference, a PureRef file with about 3,000, I think, images. And the way I look at them, I quite often don't look at them so close. I don't look at them like this. I look at them quite far because I want to get the basic shape of it. Now, for example, look at this. This is a fantastic example. If you look at it like this, you will not see that, okay? But when you look at it from afar, it looks a bit like a shark with its eye, right? Like a shark without a fin. So maybe you could put some wing on it, and you got a ship. See what I mean? And that's a gun. So that's one. But, you know, I just simply scan them really quickly, okay? I just move and, you know, about and try to look for interesting shapes, all right? And, you know, like this one is really cool, kind of like a bat, you know? Could do something out of this. Or let's say this one. This one is a fantastic example. Looks a bit like a face of a dragon with wings. You see that? So when I zoom in, you can't see that because you're focusing on details. But when you zoom out, you can, because you see there is a mouth here and kind of like wings. And you could come up with an interesting shape, you know, using that. Let's say we're going to go to Blender and we're going to grab a cube, right? So let's grab a cube. Let's scale it down a little bit like this, okay? And then we're going to apply scale and, you know, drop some of these. GG, move it in here. Alt-X with Mesh Machine. And drop a loop in here. Whoa. Drop a loop in here and here. Right. And then, you know, move these down. And move both of them down. Okay, and then maybe create one more in here like this. And, I don't know, scale it down or something, okay? And then, you know, you're gonna get more or less the shape of this feet, right? This one. Let me just put it in here so you can see. I'm gonna zoom it out, see? Kind of, resembles it. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna grab another cube, right? And do something else with it. So kind of play off of with this shape. So let's make it narrower and, kind of like this and move it somewhere here. All right. And then maybe somewhere here, make it a bit smaller and move it somewhere here. Rotate it, make it a bit more narrow maybe, or a bit more flat. And drop it somewhere here. Or even do it like that. This could be interesting. Mirror this to the other side. Right? And SZZ. And then we can grab N-gon cutter from box cutter. Right? Boom. And then let's say we're gonna cut it like this here. Or even like this here, right? Something like this, right? And then you can go to the top view and do some cuts from here, right? Okay, and then you can just play with the shapes. Let's say we could do something like this, right? We could cut it like this here to make it lighter. We could extend this one, so apply this, grab this one, right? And move it backwards, scale it. Maybe move it somewhere here, right? And you're starting getting something interesting. Maybe now this one is a bit too fat for it, so we can, scale it in and maybe elongate it. So now I'm starting to play with the shapes. Okay, I'm playing off of the shapes of whatever I'm seeing. This one could be actually a bit lower, so GZ, and can drop it down like that. So it kind of follows the shape. And you got a really cool bird-like drone. Okay, see what I mean? And then you can just play, because now you got a silhouette. Now you got something here going on. And you can start playing off of it, in Blender. But that was inspired by this, okay? That's how I work, all right? So I hope it makes sense, guys. I hope it's gonna help you out a bit with, with coming up with, with better shapes. And now let me show you one more thing. And the last thing I'm gonna show you here is that, okay, let me show you what I mean about things looking good from any angle. When I design something, I don't focus just on one angle, okay? You need to focus on every single angle, which means when you model, you need to keep rotating constantly your model to see if it's actually looking good from an angle. That's why when you watch any of my courses, you'll see me rotating stuff a lot, because I want to see how what I just done looks from any different angle. Because what I want to do is I want to check how something that I just added to the model, a cut, a piece of geometry, whatever. How does it look from a different angle? And then when you grab this model, you can look from any angle you want, and it's gonna look good and balanced. And that's the trick, okay? But this takes practice, and you can start with something more simple, like this drone I showed you, right? But this is the goal. You want your model to look good at any angle and almost any crop, okay? This is really crucial, because you never know when it's going to be used, or how you want to shoot it, right? So it doesn't matter if it's a front or it's a back or it's top, or it's bottom. It needs to look decent, okay, right? So when you model something simple, make sure that you're going to rotate it. Like for example, from this angle it looks a bit weird, so maybe we can do something else. Maybe we could just, for example, cut it in here or scale the bottom, all right? So maybe we could just grab that and SZ and scale it down, then grab the top here, okay, and introduce some chamfer, right? Then mirror to the other side, and let's see how this is gonna look. Looks a bit better, but what if, for example, we're going to cut this here in the front like this, all right? So we're going to introduce a bit more of a cut in here like this, kind of an aggressive one, or even better like this, right? How this is gonna look, okay? Well, this is gonna look any better, right? So just keep trying until you find what you're looking for, yeah? Maybe this needs some kind of a separation here in the back, between the wings and the back. Maybe we need to do something like this here, right? Maybe then we need to cut it like this, I don't know, or maybe we need to cut it like this, right? Maybe this is better. See what I mean? Now it looks lighter. And this is what I'm talking about. You need to look from every single angle, So there you go, guys. It's gonna be like a bird drone. I actually like this one. I'm actually model this later on, kind of looks cool. I'm gonna save it. So what I would like you to do is just practice, okay? Like I said, play some games that you like, sci-fi games. And the way I play games is very different, okay? I do play games and I enjoy them, but at the same time I'm trying to learn as much as possible in terms of shapes, okay? So when I played Star Citizen, you can see how I play Star Citizen. I just screenshot the shit out of this game. Because that's the point. The point is to soak in everything, right? So you can play a game, and if you enjoy it, then play it again and just play it differently. Play it to just look at stuff, okay? Observe it, walk around it. Because you're in a game, you're in 3D environments. You can look around this, you know, this amazing landing gear, right? So it's brilliant, this landing gear. You know, the way it's structured, the construct is so simple, almost brutalistic, right? But it's so genius. And the form is beautiful, looks like a kind of like a face of an, I don't know, a lizard or something. It's really cool. You know, this design in Star Citizen is just incredible. So you can walk around and see how it looks, but then go afar and, you know, kind of stand in a distance and look at shapes. You know, look. This looks like for example, like a jaw of some kind of. See, when I go really far, like a deep sea fish. You know what I mean? You know these deep sea fish on the internet, right? If you don't know, I'll show you. Kind of like this, yeah. One of these fuckers, the weird ones. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like this one with the jaw going forward. Oh, look at that. I mean, it literally looks like it, right? But when you zoom in, you can't see that because you're focusing on details. So that's the trick, guys. Yeah. The same thing when you check composition in Photoshop, okay? The very old trick in a book when you check composition of your render in Photoshop is to zoom really far, and then you can see how the lights and shadows are balancing one another because you're focusing on shapes instead of your scene. You're looking at this thing just from a different perspective, and that's how you can trick your brain to start giving you shapes, feeding you some data in terms of, you know, artistic inspiration, right? Another great example of inspiration will be nature. Guys, nature is perfect. Why nature is perfect? Nature is perfect because it's imperfect. The imperfection of nature is perfect. That's the paradox, but that's truth. There's no perfect, you know, symmetry in nature. There are no perfect angles, there are no perfect circles, but nature is perfect in its balance. It's just perfectly balanced, okay? So when you look at natural stuff, for example, you could look into macro photography, you could look into insect photography, which is great for creating alien stuff. Like, for example, when I was sculpting this bugger, right? I literally looked into some macro photography and I was looking for some kind of crazy idea. So I'm gonna look at this guy, you know, or this one. I mean, you wouldn't want to meet him on a dark alley, or this bugger, right? So there's a lot of really cool stuff that you can learn from nature, and it doesn't have to be macro photography. It can be photos of rocks. Anything really. When you, for example, create like a sci-fi city, you know, look at, for example, some pictures of rocks and mountain formations. Maybe you're gonna get some ideas for massive mega structures, right? You never know. But nature is a source of an incredible inspiration, and the best thing about nature is that it's perfectly balanced, right? Alright guys, that's it for this one. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.